I think, therefore I act.
Hey, welcome back to my channel. I'm doing a live interview here with one of my favorite independent comic creators, Saul. Hey, how you doing?
Hey, Rob.
Hey, man. Thanks for taking the opportunity to talk with me on my channel here. When I started doing this, you were one of the first ones I thought of. I'm like, I want to talk to Saul. I want to do this because I make no bones about it that these comics, I love them. I love them a lot.
Thank you, Rob.
So I'm really excited to kind of talk to you about your kind of your approach to making these and your art and kind of what all of it means to you. So how long, like, when did you come up with the idea for these? When did that kind of,
Well,
when did that come into your
like
brain?
Rob, before we talk about the books, which I want to talk about the books, let's
Oh,
let's
yeah.
let's let's say how we know each other, because like this
Well,
is
that's a
going to
good
be
idea.
a history lesson for the
There
youngins.
is. Um, for I know some people that watch are part of the old group of digital webbing, right?
Yes,
That's what
yes.
I want to talk about. I've done one or two videos on some of those things. When I think of when we first knew each other um, on digital webbing, I really started paying attention to you when we all started doing that X-Men group project that you
Uh,
took part in, and you drew
was that
some of the best, if not the
2007, or
best pages.
when was that? When was that first X-Men project? Or
Oh
2000?
my gosh!
I know that I joined Digital Web, and I think around like 2005. I think, which is like ridiculous how long ago that was.
I want to say it was around. I'm trying to put in context of like where I was at in my life, where I was living. I was married. I was living with my wife at the time. 2000 and somewhere between 2008 and 2010,
That makes sense. That
maybe.
definitely makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah, that was just a random thing that Isaac Bell, right? Is that name familiar to you?
Yeah, he was one of the digital weapon characters. And it's funny when you talk about like digital weapon was, I guess it was, the point was it was to be a publisher, but they also had this forum, like this like message board forums that had like artist showcase, inker showcase, writer showcase, and people would post
Hmm.
their work.
It's
And
up,
yeah,
still there,
right, yeah, I check into it
but
like every. It's, yeah, no, it's not.
yeah, me too on occasion.
But it was
Yeah,
great because people would actually give like real thoughts about the art from other artists, and not just like cool, nice, like.
right. Yeah, you
Or
could get some real feedback. People who were creatives and did the work and could give you like knowing feedback. Like,
right.
I draw, you draw, we all draw, and I like this, I dislike this. I feel like you have the opportunity to grow
Yeah, and people
being
would even
there.
give just like totally unvarnished, like you need to work on this, and that's great because you want to hear stuff like that. And then
Yeah,
and this is the first time we're actually speaking in face to face, which is pretty amazing, right?
yeah. Yeah, the digital webbing thing was great. There's still several people that kind of interact with Ray Dillon and Renee DeLees. You remember
Right.
them?
Yes.
They're doing really well. And Isaac Bell that I mentioned, and then there's a whole Facebook group now. I think you're part of with
Right.
like I
Right.
joined up. Where there here's all these people. Yeah, I honestly I miss that the whole thing, the way that the message board worked.
It's hard to like Instagram doesn't come close to it. There's no comparison.
There's not really any interaction. I
No.
mean, you can see a picture and you can comment, but it's not the same.
I've gone on Pencil Jack. You ever tried Pencil Jack?
I used to go back and forth there all the time. I just always seem to gravitate towards digital webbing, but is pencil jack still a thing?
It is. I remember I posted some work from this when I just started coloring it to get some feedback on that, because like digital webbing at the time was not as vital. Like I wasn't getting a lot of eyes on it.
Yeah.
But at that time, which was, I don't know, maybe whatever 5 years ago. I got some honest feedback on it on that forum. So I mean, I'm sure it's around. I don't know how many people are on it, but it's around.
Yeah. I mean, those two websites, like that's where Ryan Otley was found by
Right.
Robert Kirkman, as far as I understand it. Like he was going through the forums and saw this Ryan Otley guy and says, "Do you want to come draw Invincible for me?" And the rest is history.
Yeah. And
So,
yeah, I used to do 10 ton studios. They had like
oh,
a draw off, and 10 ton studios that created, had a lot of guys who went on to work for like Marvel and DC go through there. I mean, like the guys who are actually in the studios, not just guys on the message board. But I mean, it was a good community. So all those things were
yeah,
out there. It's a good place for like beginners to or people to, I don't know. I guess it's hard to find if you're not in an art school. Let's say it's hard to find an art community um, in real life.
yeah,
Maybe depending on
yeah,
the circumstance.
yeah. And social media and the internet has made it really easy for people to, kind of come together and share your work and interact with others that do the same kind of stuff you like, as opposed to like my buddy I knew from high school and he lives far away now, and who else do you talk to? So it's a really useful tool for as all the negatives that social media has. I mean, there's so many
Well, it's getting
negatives.
it's getting worse over time. It's getting more
Yeah,
superficial and um, I don't know. It like just the way people interact with it is getting
yeah,
less
yeah.
healthy.
So there's like positives and negatives, and we'll just focus on the positives and the creation of awesome art. But I mean, yeah, there was that group project that a bunch of us did, and I still maintain to this day that Galactus page that you
Yeah,
did. It's one of the best pages. Like, do you still have it?
I totally have it. Yeah, I
Oh,
um I had it was like a 3 page sequence. I actually sold one of the pages at a con last year, and I felt a little
oh,
bad. I was like,
really?
oh, should I didn't sell Galactus, but I sold like the page where Jean Grey is like burning Magneto's face off or something. Um,
Right.
so
Yeah.
yeah, and
Yeah.
so I sold it to somebody. It's always funny to haggle over original art, because you're like, "Oh, I
Yeah.
only spent like hours on this, but yeah, I'll knock off $5 for it."
Yeah. It's hard to know what to charge somebody. I found that people tend to be willing to part with their money a little bit more than I was expecting when they really want something. Like I did a convention, you probably saw me posting about it at the end of September, and with the economy and everything the way it's going, I was like, this is probably going to be a terrible show, and I made more money that show than
Yeah.
ever have before. People were willing to buy stuff. I was really shocked. So when people want a thing, they'll pay.
Were they buying original art, or were they buying prints?
I sort of. I was doing the things that kept me in making money is I recommend to anybody, at least in my experience, the old nerds that love Star Trek. I have several prints of Star Trek characters. I sold a ton of those. The old Gargoyles animated show. I did a whole. I have. It's like 3 individual images. You maybe saw me post them. So I have them as 3 separate prints, and then one where they're all together onto one. People love the gargoyles, so I sold a bunch
Okay.
of those, and then just on-site commissions,
See,
just drawing original.
I've never done the on-site. I never imagined that anything I'm gonna be able to do for somebody in 25 minutes is gonna be better than like something I worked on for like days, let's say, even though it's reproduction.
Yeah,
Like, I mean, I guess some people like the original art, but I haven't done it yet.
it's not easy. I'm not good at it. I see some people do on-site commissions, and they produce the most amazing work. In fact, I pictures of it and I never posted it. They're on my phone. I actually need to do it. Is these guys would come through and they got a big giant sketchbook, and they just take it
Right.
and have people draw their own image on a page, and then on the inside front cover they'll have the guy write their name and what page they did it on. And there is some of the most amazing art I've ever seen. I'm like, somebody sat at a table at a convention and did this.
Right.
I'll have to post them. It's shocking. Like Copic markers, fully toned, inking.
I mean, but you
It,
have to
I
like
can't.
you have to charge enough though, because when you're drawing for the guy, you can't engage with anybody else. Like somebody comes by, like, "Oh, that's cool." You're like, "Well, I'm working on poison
Yeah,
ivy right here. I can't talk to you." So you like, I feel like you really have to charge enough to make it worth your while.
yeah. I also kind of like, I might need a stretch of time to do this. I'm not going to be able to bang this out because I want to do good. I want to make it worth their time. But I'm like, a 20-minute drawing, if you wanted like inked and everything, like I could pencil sketch something fast. But if you want an inked drawing, which is what I prefer, I need some time. So I take their phone number
Right.
and like I'll text you or something when it's done. I'll have it done before the end of the show or something to that effect. But that's why I also bring. I have my one of my best friends comes with me, Bobby, who sits with me, because one, she's charming and fun and talkative and way prettier than me. So I let her interact with the people so I can do the drawing. So
Sure.
that helps a
Sure.
lot. But it's for me, it's really draining.
Oh yeah.
Drawing because I'm focused because I'm not at my nice drawing table. I don't have my supplies. I'm just not in my element. I'm sitting in this loud open room
Yeah,
and
I can't do it because like when I do
it's
the
hard.
drawing, I'm in like salesman mode. Um,
Yeah.
and I feel like salesman mode is very different from art mode for me. Like art is like I'm very
Yeah,
inward. I'm not engaging. I'm just like I can't like switch back and forth between those two things.
I agree. I would probably prefer not to do it, but I make a lot of money doing it.
No, oh yeah,
And
great.
a lot of other stuff, the Star Trek, the Gargoyles, commissions, and I sold a lot of my books, my fan comic. So
That's the best.
those things were keeping me profitable. It's really weird. And then what's frustrating is to see people around you like not drawing a single thing, but people are just handing them money nonstop. I'm like, what
I had that
voodoo do you
exact
have?
I had that exact experience at a con I was at last year. Like there was a lot of like artists and like people like trying to like show what they did, and then there's just a bunch of guys selling like lightsabers, and everybody kept lining up the lightsabers. I'm like, oh, come on, man, this is a comic book convention. I know you want a cool toy for your kid, but it was just like crushing how much business they were doing selling these lightsabers.
Yeah, yeah, it's crazy. But the convention thing for me is very fun. I'm so glad they started doing them locally because I don't have the means to travel out of state, especially if I'm not sure I'm going to make the money. I mean, you got to have an expense
Oh
to
yeah, no. Sometimes you
create your
just
material.
want to break even. That's it.
Right. Yeah. So that's a lot of fun. That's what I do at the convention. So I recommend them for anybody. But
This
it
your
is.
Galactus, by the way.
Oh, uh, I might need to hit you up about that. I love it so much. It's so good, and that's several years old for you,
Yeah,
right? That
yeah, but I was very focused on the inking for it, because like I was like I don't know, I just wanted it to look sweet. Like
I appreciate that you wanted your pages to look good for this group project that was never going to go anywhere. No one's going to see this thing. It's just us. But for me, it was a little bit of like, I want to represent. I got to do my best work because I'm surrounded by
yeah,
all these other guys.
I think there was a huge pride element to it because you're like, hey, I'm getting together with 15, 20 artists like my peers,
Yeah,
right? Like
yeah.
I want to show, hey, look, I think that's more motivational than money for me. Like, I think I did a
You know,
better job
yeah.
on that Galactus than on some jobs I got for just some weirdo, like, is paying
Well,
me a page rate.
you don't want to be the guy who did the worst pages in the
No,
book. Like you want to,
no,
like I did these. You know, that was a really fun thing. It was really a chaotic thing because I was kind of managing the whole thing, like keeping people up. Like you agree to do this. Are you going to do this? Send me the pages. I'll collect them up. I'll post them up. Um, I learned to kind of really enjoy that process. It's something I kind of I don't know. I could see myself doing more of that somehow, just managing the process and also like seeing the story that I was kind of help guide and then seeing other people draw it. and how they artistically interpreted what was
I mean, yeah.
needed. I'm like, I never thought of that. It's so much better. It was so fun to watch that thing come to
Well, I guess
realization.
that like that's what an editor does, or like an art director. I mean, that's a whole
Yeah.
separate thing, that is very valuable in the process.
Yeah. It was fun. So yeah, so that's where we knew each other. I mean, I there was such a long time of being on the website. I don't really remember anything specifically about you, except that's where my memory of like our interactions was like Saul did these pages, and I'm like, okay, he's one of the absolute best. There were a couple guys that did some really good stuff, but your work was far and above some of the best stuff on it. It looked really great.
Thanks, Rob.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, no, it was a good time. Like that was like a long period of my like I don't want to say like artistic journey, but it's not like a douchebag. Like because art is my it's not my full time job. So like
Yeah.
getting out and posting things and sharing and contributing to those communities was kind of basically the driving force in a lot of ways to just keep that continuity alive.
Yeah.
So like if I would look back on my posting history, you might have like 1 year where you were just posting every day, and then you might
Yeah.
have like 6 months where you didn't even have that it's just kind of just how life is, especially when
Yeah.
um, you have to carve out your own time and your own motivation to
Yeah.
to work on stuff. Um, yeah. So
Yeah, finding the time to do it. I mean, at that time, I had just gotten together with the girl who was going to be my wife, and then she had a son, and then we started having kids, and then as you know, that lasted about 10 years. We got divorced a couple years ago, so I'm in a position now where I have a lot of free time. Like, unfortunately, I don't have my kids with me anymore, so I fill it being right at this desk. Honestly, this desk and being able to come in here and sit and do this was very therapeutic for me once that life that I was living was done and I don't have my family or my kids anymore, is sitting at that drawing table, you know, just creating. It helps you like get your mind out of everything else.
yeah,
So it, that's why I'm able to kind of do so much on my own. I know you're in a position now where you got just a very young child, you got
yeah,
two very young kids, so it's hard to carve out the time.
yeah. It's weird. I feel like last year, like since I was productive, even though I wasn't, I didn't have the most time. Like I felt like I've had times in my past where I've had a lot of free time and I just did like jack shit, and like I hate that, but that's the fact. And then once my time got crunched a little more by life, I kind of had to get a little more disciplined and be like, look, if I don't make time now, like I'm just done. So I
Yeah.
actually was able to. It's funny how that is like that. Sometimes you like when I think about art these days, I think about it a lot more in terms of like the like not the technical aspect of how do I draw this, what's a deltoid, like how do I do 3 point perspective. I think about
Right.
it in terms of like time management and
Hmm.
motivation and discipline because I think that's more important than just your talent or your learning or like
Yeah.
you have to just do it and you have to make time and you have to have
Hmm.
time. Like right now,
Yeah.
for the past few months, I haven't had time. So I'm like that was part of the reason I was happy to have this discussion. I kind of wanted to like kickstart things, but it's been just a very crazy time in my life, good things and bad things. And so whatever,
Yeah.
I'm not, that's it. I couldn't do it. I didn't have time. That's life.
Yeah.
Um, so I just, it's like there's a strategy to it of trying to make the time to do that project, to do a product.
Yeah. Well, I think you had your point was great. The discipline part of it, just sitting down and making a thing. Um, I talk about it often on my channel, especially when I look at independent creator books, to have somebody create a work and it's done and it's actually there. I've known so many people that talk all the time about all their ideas and all these concepts and what they're going to do, and they never do it. But someone who just actually makes a thing, you know,
Right.
make the work. And I think you probably saw that most recent one that I did. Um,
Oh yeah, and you said it was 130 pages or whatever.
it says right on there 130 pages.
Right.
I was ecstatic for that book. I was like, this is a guy's first work, his first attempt. I'm like, and I was talking about how the art was rough, technically speaking, but it was clear. And I got to read his story. I got to like go on the
Right.
adventure he wanted to take us on. It's so great. There's somebody who made something, which is something you've done, and something I've done. And that's the fun part. But you've got to sit down and make the book,
And and
create
as
the
you
work.
make it, you learn and grow and get better. And
Yeah.
and and like I feel like when I was younger, like you have like assume most people like you're gonna suck at first, right? Like you're gonna be worse at the stuff. I
Yeah.
mean, unless you're like a prodigy or something. So you just have to create bad art and know like that you suck, but then keep going
Yeah.
and making more, which is kind of hard because you're like, oh, I'm bad at this, but I'm going to keep doing it, and that's kind of obvious, but it's really not that easy, especially for art when you're so personally invested in it. You're like,
Yeah.
there's nobody else to blame if your drawing is not good, or it's not
Yeah.
like there's a team involved. It's just you, and so it's your ideas, your thoughts. There's no framework at all. Sky's the limit, So
Yeah.
just getting yourself to do it and keep doing it, and like you say, like this guy put out a whole book. I mean, it's fantastic. That's the
Yeah.
best.
And I even messaged him. It's kind of weird. I think out of all the independent creator books I've reviewed, his is getting the most views. It's approaching 500, which
Cool.
is pretty damn good. I like the two videos before were like Jim Lee books. They're only like 4. His video's getting more. I don't know if he shared it to other people that have made it get. I don't know.
it's
But I love the idea that it's getting
it's a good
seen. And
title.
what's that?
It's a good title. Upsetting. I
It
like that.
is.
Good title.
Yeah, it was really clever. I was just laughing at the humor in it and
Yeah.
just engrossed with the story. And he said that he wasn't really thinking about making multiple copies and putting them out there, but he's like, he messaged me today. He's like, it's the video's getting some views. He's like, maybe I should. I'm like, yeah, maybe you print a couple copies and put them out there. Like,
Right.
he only had a couple and he sent me one. I was really honored to get that. But I was like, you need to make more. You need to sell these. It's awesome.
Right. And the great thing about creating something of your own is that you can create something today and sell it in 2 years, Like you don't have
Oh yeah.
it's not going anywhere. Like
Yeah.
you could print it out when you have some more work to show for yourself. You don't doesn't it's not going away.
Yeah. And the place where I print my books up at, there's like a small print run minimums, 25 copies minimum. You know what I mean? And that's not terribly expensive. It's a decent stack,
Right.
25 books. You don't have to do like 1,000. I got 25 books. I can afford that and sell them and then print more as I need. So we have options available to us that just weren't available when I was like an early teenager, and trying to draw. I was like, where do you even go? I can sit here and draw badly, but what do I do with it? I don't know what
Right.
to do. But now we got all these opportunities for us. There's really no reason if somebody wants to make something, you can just make it and you can get it seen. So that's why I like seeing works that are completed and done. Like it's people like you that I want to make a thing and you made it and it's there and it's really good. Who are your I've been meaning to ask you this because what kind of comics or artistic influence did you have growing up? Because you had said right that I did a video that was actually a book that you actually had for once. I'm
Right.
like, I have
Right.
300 videos and not one of these you have, and you're like, we got different tastes. So I'm
You
like,
know,
what are your tastes or interests?
it's funny. I didn't read much like monthly comic books until I was around like 18. Honestly, like those previous like adolescent years, I wasn't reading like Superman and X-Men and stuff like that. I loved Calvin and Hobbes. I loved Calvin and Hobbes, and
Yes.
like the artwork in Calvin and Hobbes kind of like encapsulates like it already like he does the superhero parodies. He does the Bill Watterson. He's the Calvin and Hobbes guy.
Yeah.
He does the noir stuff. He does like heavy inks. He does like he does it all. Like, he's an amazing artist, and he's
Oh, yeah.
also very funny. Right? But so I just love that, and I picked up a couple of Superman comics here and there, enough to make like I didn't need like I just loved drawing myself, and I loved cartoons and superheroes and action and stuff like that. So I more got it from TV because that's what I had access to. So like
Yeah.
Batman the animated series, like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, all that stuff, all
Yeah.
those nostalgia cartoons. I mean, like from the '80s, like that's that's kind of what my book is about. Like He-Man, Transformers. I absolutely love that stuff. But when it comes to actual comic book reading, that my like biggest time was probably like from 18 to like, well, I'd say to now, but I actually kind of stopped reading regularly since COVID because it kind of interrupted my like trips to the comic book store. But whatever, those years,
Right.
my 20s was probably like when I was like the biggest reader, and I love DC. I also like Marvel. It's not like I'm not like one of those guys who's like fuck Marvel, fuck DC. No, I'm just like whatever. If it's good, right? It's good artist, good writer. Like, I don't
Sure. Yeah.
But yeah. Some of my favorite artists. I was telling you this the other day. Like, you got to do Doug Mankey. He's amazing. Um, Doug Mankey. He's like one of the guys who I've been following for a long time. Yeah, Ed
Yeah.
McGuinness. Yeah, I don't know. I just there was a time where I was like very um, interested in specific artists. Like I'd have like those printouts. Like you told me you had like art that you'd print out off the computer when you'd see an image. I used to
Oh,
do
yeah.
like I used to do that too. I would you know have those like copy and paste those images, to like a folder or something. And yeah,
Yep.
there was definitely a ton of guys who I really were amazed with. But I guess that was more like when I was starting to be into comics, and then then I just kind of started focusing on trying to make my own stuff, and like the influences grow, as you see more and
Yeah.
learn more, like Mike Mignola, like at first I wouldn't like his work, or I remember even had one of his comics when I was younger, and I just thought it was weird, like I just didn't get it.
It wasn't any good for our dumb brains who didn't understand.
Right. But
And then,
then I was like, whoa, he's doing a lot of really interesting stuff here. So yeah, so I mean, just mainstream DC stuff. Image has a lot of great, a lot of great runs. Like, oh, I love Headlopper. That's actually, if you think of Andrew McLean, he's a great artist. If you think of like my most recent influence on my art style right now, it's probably him because he does a very like a stripped down kind of um, like a graphic style, like
yeah.
well, cartoony ish, but in a certain way. I don't know. He's different, and I realized that it's eye catching. So like, who
Yeah.
cares if the anatomy is weird? I'm looking at it and I'm interested. So it kind of made
Right.
me
Oh,
think like I should be doing something similar.
yeah, absolutely. I'm curious. I can't remember if I've mentioned you or you know, in a text message or a response or something like that. Are you a fan of Matt Wagner?
I I I am like he's not like I read it some of his stuff, and he's definitely I read some good comics by him. He's not like one of my favorites or anything like that, but yeah, I've definitely read some good stuff by him.
I see so much of his type of work in yours, or I just when I look at it, when I was looking through books, in some way, I don't know how to explain it, but I was like, it reminds me of Matt Wagner's work, like on Mage or some of the Grendel stuff. It's from like a drawing perspective, in that like Matt Wagner doesn't do this hyper cross-hatchy, super overly muscular. He's more concerned about, I talk about this, a simplified drawing that's more concerned about getting the emotion of the drawing rather than dazzling you with Stephen Platt prophet comic level of over the top rendering to hide their failings. And so I see that, and I say it as a complete and total like compliment. I mean, when I see your work, I'm like, this reminds me of Matt Wagner, and I love his stuff. So that's what I see in yours.
I feel like as an artist, I like ask myself, like I gotta like pick my battles, you know, like what is it that I can do really well, and what is it that I can't do really well, you know? Like if I
Yeah.
wanted to very realistically render all the anatomy, all the clothing folds, um, all the perspective, all the machinery, like some artists can do. Like perhaps I could do it, but it would take me a really long time. And would it stand out? Like, would I be capitalizing on my strengths? You know, like what will I get out of that? You know, so I sort of started to feel like trying to find a stylistic ground where I can make the most out of what I'm doing. You know, and I think that's hard to figure out your style.
Yeah. I still don't. I don't feel like I've actually. I don't know. I don't feel like I've ever landed on a style for myself. I feel like I'm always trying to just emulate the good artwork of other guys that I know. Not copy them, but like I want it to look like, I want a combination of like Mark Silvestri and Adam Hughes somehow.
Right.
It doesn't make any sense. I don't feel like I don't know what my own style is, if I even do. I just try to draw the best drawing I can, and sometimes I want to do the crazy over rendered cross hatching because it's fun. But then other times I'm like, I need to just, this drawing needs to be simplified like a Mike Mignola, like a simple stark black and white. Don't do all this nonsensical cross hatching. And I'm back and forth. I feel like I'm kind of chaotic. I don't know what I'm doing.
No, I mean that's definitely. I feel like that's kind of what you know. I always try and figure out, and and I try and push myself to go simpler. Like you know, I like let me show like a panel that I remember you commented on in one of your reviews. That you were like, okay, like this panel with the Doctor Mage there, you know.
Yes. Yep.
So like I was looking before we started. I'm like, what can I show? You know, what can I show to Rob? So like I have like all these little sketches of like the ideas of how to do that, like smoky clouds and all that, you know. So
Oh,
like
I love that stuff.
so like one way I started, it was just like a lot of those little lines, you know, like a very liney. Like, how am I going to get a good gradation of that, like smoke going into the distance and all that? So like it kind of
Right.
started like that, but then I was like, you know what? I want this book to feel like it's not like it has a stylistic voice, you know, whatever, and not wavering from page to page. So yeah, I tried
Yeah.
out a couple things, and basically, eventually, you know, you got what's on that final page, you know.
And that's one of the things that stood out to me is kind of a Matt Wagner type of style. Like he'll do a simple line. It communicates. Here's a full figure. Here's some smoke, and it fades out. It reads. It's not hyper rendered, and it could look good that other way. But what you did was like just like you're describing. I need to like find a economical way to move through pages, but communicate what I want to do. I loved it. I think my brain would never let me do that, and I don't mean that as like because I can do better. I don't mean it that way, but I'm like, I have to do more than that. I will never get away with this. It won't work, but it totally works. You totally nailed it.
Well, I'm always so paranoid because the bottom line is I always want whatever I draw to read, you know. Like
Yeah.
when I say read, I mean that the reader understands what he's looking at. Because I'm still afraid that someone's gonna be like, "What's that? A puppy?" And I'm like, "No!" Like always,
Yeah. Yeah.
like I always just want to make it as clear as possible. And so lots of times I feel that the fewer lines you're going to get more clarity. Because like you were showing that you were looking at what was it, like a rip claw or something? I don't know. The artwork had a lot going on, and the colors did not help to differentiate between like the foreground and the background. And you were
Right.
just like, there's a lot of sinews and muscles. I have no idea what the hell I'm looking at, and I hate that. I don't want my art to ever look like that. I want people to get it, even if it's and like you said, sometimes simple is not necessarily a drawback. There's a lot of artists who and a lot of great art that is very simple. So it's really like a personal choice.
Yeah. I think I remember a long time ago reading a comment on some forum where there was some artist. I'm trying to remember. Um, I remember the artist's name. Oh my gosh. Anyway, he did a very clean, open line um, drawing. I think it's some X-Men book. I think it was one of the books where the first that Wolverine's clone, the girl clone with the claws. Why can't I think? I don't follow these characters that much anymore. I wish I could remember the artist's name, but
The
um,
early issues of X-23 or whatever.
I think so. Um, it's going to drive me nuts if I can't think of the name, but very talented artist. But somebody was commenting that he's not very talented. He's not very good because look, he doesn't do any cross hatching or shading. It's all open line. Like that's so quick. It's so simple. And I was like, no, dude, that's the hard stuff because you can't hide anything. It is
Yeah.
all your figure work is on display. You can't hide it with like this cross hatching and scribbling and nonsense and shading, which kind of distracts your eye. It's just like if you can't get that figure exactly correct, not like photorealistic correct, but in a stylized way correct. You know what I'm getting at? Like
Yes. No.
all your
And
you can't hide. There's no hiding.
yeah, and I'm always pushing myself to be simpler. And because you're right, it is harder to be simpler because there's fewer
I agree.
like you have there's fewer choices, so you have to make the right choices.
Yeah. And I use the term deceptively simple. It looks simple, so it looks easy, but it's not. Like I was just working on this before you messaged me, and I'm like, I can't help but like I just keep adding lines everywhere, and I keep adding
I I
details, and I'm
saw
like,
that I saw that page and I'm like, what is having the trap jar on that last panel?
right,
I'm
getting
worried.
smashed. I want you to go like, is he dead? Because my books, people don't survive. So
I
you know,
I and the second to last panel where Trap Joe's got his mouth open, that came out really good. I like
it's hard to draw this guy with like a lot of these characters, like getting them to like. It's one thing to draw like a still, straight, static shot, but then he's got to turn his head and open his mouth. What does the underside of his jaw look like? What does the
yeah,
inside of his mouth look like? If he gets smashed, what would that look like? Or
right.
even in 5, I had him like take his jaw off on in like a private moment. He removed his jaw. I'm like, no one ever showed that. So I wanted to do things like that, but
Yeah.
I just can't help but lines down on my pages everywhere. I'm like, simplify.
sometimes sometimes I'll be designing a character for the comic I'm doing, and I'll realize that I've only drawn like the straight ahead and the full profile. And then like I'll get to a panel where I have to draw a 3/4, and I'll say to myself, I actually
You're like,
never thought about what that's going to look like, and
right.
and I'll just have to be like, oh shit, okay, let me sketch this out because I don't even know what this looks like in 3D.
That reminds me, I'm looking for it. Oh, right here. Um, did you read any of the like X Force books when Rob Liefeld was doing them?
I did not. That's what I was telling you. I
Yeah.
never read any Liefeld. I never read him.
I Well, he had the villain Strife, and I'm looking for
Which
this
I that
and
that
he's
was when I was a kid. I thought that design was very cool. I mean, even though I didn't
and
read the
it was
books.
I'm looking for the shot of him. So he's in this ridiculous costume,
Right.
and you can tell like you draw this guy straight on, big helmet, big
Yeah.
flaps, big points that Liefeld would design. But then there's a panel in book 2 where you're seeing that ridiculous helmet from the back, and I
Right.
I can just tell that John Romita Jr., who drew this, must have been looking at this thing going, what does the back of this thing look like? It
Right.
has some, I'm looking at the panel right here. It has some ridiculous, like, designy points to it. I pointed out in the video itself, and if I was prepared, I would have had this picked up. But oh my gosh, I'm going to sit here and flip through it. Oh, yeah, here we go. It's like he had to draw the back of that
Right.
helmet. Now, I don't know what little forks coming out the back of his head are supposed to be for, but when you look at it straight, there's little pointy things coming up the back of it. So
Right.
Ramita must have been like, I don't know what the hell's there. I'll just
Yeah.
make something up. Like you're saying, you got to get a full turnaround on these
So, like
guys.
sometimes you'll paint yourself into a corner with like a cool design element, and then like you say from the back, you're like, oh, that's a problem now.
I ran into the same thing in my He-Man fan comic because there's the character She-Ra. If you know her basic design, she's got like an outfit that's basically from her chest down, so her shoulders and her arms are bare, and she's got like a little choker around her throat, and then this mask and this long blonde hair. But she has a big long red cape, and I'm like, what is the cape holding on to? Because her outfit is from her chest, and then the way it looks, it cuts low on her lower back. I'm like, the only place it would be connected is to this choker around her
Right.
throat, and that doesn't make sense. You get choked out. So I'm like, how do I do? What do I do? So I just hide it like they do in the
Right.
cartoon, where they just like have her hair flowing where it's connected, so you never see, but her cape is just billowing out behind her. I'm like, I just got to fake it. I don't know what to do.
You know, sometimes in those old cartoons, it was easier to fake something because like the character spins around and it's like a split second, you know. And if you were
Yeah,
like, I'm gonna pause it, I'm gonna see how they did it, and like you'll pause it and you'll see like it's just bullshit. They didn't actually figure
yeah,
it out. But then in
yeah.
a comic panel, you have to figure it out because it just sits there in front of the reader the whole time. They can see everything you're doing, so there's no faking it.
Well, I think of all these old Image comic designs. They'll always draw these guys with these like harnesses on their body, these big straight chest pieces with shoulder pads, but there's no joints. I'm like, what happens when you have to draw them? How does this thing move? How does it flex? Like, and then I go back and I look at the books where the artists are drawing it, and like you can tell they're just bullshitting around it. I'm like, but how does it work?
Well,
It doesn't make sense.
that's what you know. Like talking about Transformers, like the joints. Like think about the joints on the arm of like Optimus Prime or something. What does that look like in the cartoon? If you like, I was drawing some like nostalgia prints. For like I was trying to put all the characters in the world in there. And if you look at the cartoon trying to see like what's Optimus Prime's elbow look like, you'll never see it because they'll always have it from a weird view. And then if you wanna draw that, like you're just gonna have to figure it out for yourself, you know,
Yeah,
and find something that works
yeah.
because it doesn't really work. Like here's a let's see, I gotta or you'll just never draw it. You'll never draw the arm in that fashion. Yeah, like here, this one I just kind of copped out. I didn't draw I didn't draw Optimus Prime's arms bent like they're just straight. You know,
Yeah,
I have no idea what his elbow looks like. I just didn't want
right.
to. I didn't want to draw that guy's elbow. You know, like it's too. It's like a Rubik's cube or something. I don't know.
Speaking of character designs, one of my favorite things that you'd ever done, you were posting while you were, I guess, prepping designs for your book, were those character sheets of those basically like Masters of the Universe type characters. And like I was saying this on that book with the unsettling, that book with that guy, where humor is hard, and I don't think I can't write humor. I don't know how to make things funny. But every one of those that you posted, every character, the design, and then the text you'd write around it, I'm like, these are so funny. They're so, because those old He-Man characters, like the action figures, were the most giant, muscly, roided out
Right?
things you've ever seen. And so you
They're
never
ridiculous.
failed to mention how they
It's like
hit the gym.
ridiculous. Like the
Yeah,
like I love those figures as a kid, but you're looking at it as an adult, like what is going on in these figures? Like there's like oh, I was gonna
That-
call you. I was gonna call you out on this. I was gonna call you out on this, Rob, because as I was reading
do it.
I just read your most recent books and I enjoyed them very much. And as I was getting into the story of, like you're like four outcast guys, I was like,
Yeah.
Rob definitely had these action figures when he was a kid. There's no possible reason why he would care about these characters to this degree if it was not an action figure that he owned when he was like 10 years old. That's the only explanation. Is that
You
true?
want to know what? I never had them. I had He-Man and Skeletor and Man-at-Arms because we were very poor and I had very few. I only got this guy in the last year because I found him in a local store and I'm like,
Oh,
this is like the star of the book. And I'm like, I want to have the figure. And so this is one of the originals. And then they did this one. I took his
right. That's
clothes
like a
off because
redo. Yeah.
this is one of the newer remasters. And I'm like, I want to collect the figures of the team that's the focus in my book. But I never did have these. In fact, the character to me was stupid, but I just started like I wanted to do something with them and I'm like I just started coming up with story ideas and to me he suddenly became extremely interesting because they're mostly blanks. They're just like a design with a weapon.
Right.
And so I'm like, well, what can I do with these guys? Because they're kind of blank slates.
Yeah. Sure.
And so I just started writing them and kind of made them my own in a way. And the story points that I've got coming that I've done, I kind of I I think it's I hate to say I think I did good, but it's
No, you
what I
did.
would want to read. I enjoyed it.
You invested a lot into the characters to the point where I was like wondering, like I don't really know necessarily all the backstory of the characters.
Yeah.
I mean, I haven't watched every single episode of the series. So I was wondering, like, is this based on like lore, or is Rob just like creating all of this?
It's mostly just making it up because Fisto, he was only in 4 episodes maybe, and then Jitsu, the Asian guy, 1 episode that never called out his name. Um, and Strong Arm was only in ever 1 episode
Hmm.
and just a big goofy looking guy. In fact, I used to think he was really stupid looking, the guy with the one big giant arm.
Right.
But I'm like, it's so stupid, but it's also kind of awesome in a weird way. And so I scaled them up to make them big. And I kind of, because they had no character, I just gave them character points to make the story interesting to me. And they're basically almost different people now, but I try not to directly contradict anything that was in the original 80s show
Right.
because that's where the basis is. But there's so little, you almost can't contradict anything because there's
Okay.
nothing
So,
there.
well, okay, I stand corrected. Yeah, because a lot of the things that
That's an
I'll
point. I never thought of it like that. I'm like, that's valid, but no, I never had those ones.
like a lot of the things that I'll have as like, oh, I really like that character. Like, what does that go back to? It might be like that was the first comic I had. That was the first toy I had. And like just arbitrary, but then that nostalgia will just carry through. Like nostalgia is a very strong. Uh, very strong. Like if you think like what is the superhero you love most? It perhaps you think back to like Christopher Reeve Superman, which I thought were great movies. Like
Yeah,
that defined Superman for me. Like it's open and shut case. Like that was like
that's it. That's Superman.
so like so if I saw that when I was 8, let's say, like that is a lot stronger perhaps than if I saw that when I was like 28, because like that's like that opened your eyes up to these ideas. And it's interesting, yeah. And that's what a lot of like geek culture is, and I think that if you're in that world, as a creator, you have to like think about that, and I think everybody
Yeah,
does.
yeah, oh yeah. I mean, a lot
Yeah.
of the books I talk about, I look back and I'm like, I remember enjoying this as a kid, but I read it now and I'm like, this stuff is not good. And then I get a little bit of pushback on occasion from people like, what are you talking about? This was great. I'm like,
Right.
but is it nostalgia? Do you love it because it was this magically fun time as a kid with these crazy fun books and we all loved it? But then you go back and read it. I'm like I can't even be bothered to read it again because there's nothing here that's interesting. Like,
Yeah.
and then some stories pick out the good stories. Like I remember the first time I read Watchmen, I was like, wow, this is unlike anything I've ever read. But reading, Stormwatch from Jim Lee's studio, I'm like, it's flashy art. They end.
Yeah, I feel like with the nostalgia, it's just a hit or miss. Like you might love something that's awful, and you might love something that was great. But you're gonna love it anyway, as long as it was one of those formative things for you. Like for me, like if you play the music, the sound of like a transformer changing, like
Yeah,
I'm gonna have an erection. Like that's it.
right.
It's. I just can't turn that off. If I were to go back and watch the old 80s cartoon, would I even enjoy it? I'm not sure. I haven't done it much. Maybe I watched a couple episodes over the years just to be like, is this any good? And not
They're a
really,
little rough. Yeah, you know, I
maybe
can.
yes, maybe yeah, maybe not. I don't know.
Yeah, I can still watch the animated Transformer movie anytime, and I love it. I saw it in the
Right.
theater with my brother when we were 10, I think. What year was it? 86, 87, something like that. I still think that that's legitimately good, even though it's light on story. It's all like action, action, action. Here's
Yeah.
the new toy. But I love it. But the old original cartoon, it's kind of like the He-Man stuff. I go back and watch the old cartoons. I'm like, this was written for 8-year-olds of the 1980s. It's not.
I did love the sound and the voice acting
Oh, yeah.
of most of those cartoons, but especially Transformers. Like Megatron, Starscream, Soundwave, like Shock. Those were great effects that those actors did. I mean, it was like a simplistic kids way, but I love those. I love that voice acting in those
I
shows.
still think of all the voice acting, animation, sound effects, and story, even in the first couple episodes of Thundercats, to me, still stand out as like, that's really good. I still really like it. It's
I I feel
good.
like Thundercats, like the music to me is the most standout. Like that, it was always like
Yes.
eerie, like
Yes.
that really gets to me. That music.
Yeah.
Yeah, but again, a lot of it is hokey, but it had some amazing stuff in it. And so I'll take the opportunity as we're like practically been talking for. I haven't even talked about what my book is, but let me do that. Right? Let
Let's do it. Why not? Right?
me why not? Here's my book. Um, Beyond the Void is the name of the book.
Yes.
It's That's issue one. This is issue two right here.
Yep.
The idea is kind of a mashup of superheroes, like superhero comics, like Marvel, DC, and like these 80s cartoons that we're talking about. Basically, because
Yep.
I just love both of those things, and I think that they're kind of different in their own way. Like Marvel and DC Comics is like this vast continuity, and years and years of stories of characters, and like it's kind of like a never ending. It's like a soap opera almost. It's the same
Yeah.
idea. It's just a continuous, just huge world. And then you have like these little cartoons that we're talking about, which are more self-contained, but um, also just amazing visuals, amazing fun, and especially if you are from that period when you were a child, those cartoons are going to really hit home for you. So, so the idea was to like the superheroes are in trouble.
Yep.
This lady here, her world is in a bad way. Like the big bad guy. Who I'll show you this page here. I thought that was cool. That
I love it so much.
that was this is one of my favorite pages. I mean, I guess it sounds like what am I saying? It's my favorite page. But that was one of like I was trying to for that page. So like that bad guy, like he conquers that that universe. So she needs to get help from other places, and she goes to these cartoon universes and to recruit their help. And it's like the '80s cartoons that you all know and love. Um, let's see, I'll just show that like money shot from the end of the first issue. You know, you got your He-Man style character, you got your Transformers style character, Thundercat, GI Joe, and there's your Ninja Turtle style character.
Yeah.
Like each of those is like such a you know such a big impact on pop culture. So that's the idea, just like bring it all together for just a crazy, so many fun characters, just fun visuals, and just see where that goes.
I mean, almost as an elevator pitch, if you were to like say, like, I'm going to do this alternate version of Marvel type comic book characters, and this one character has to travel the universe or the multiverse or whatever to find help, and they travel to the worlds of the '80s cartoons. I'm like, oh my god, I'm on board. Please
That
make this book.
that's kind of why I did make the book, because like I've had a lot of ideas over the years. There were started a lot of things, and then this was an idea, and I was like, this could be a good idea. like I feel like
Oh,
this could be something that I can invest in. And because that's what you want. Like going back to that original discussion about discipline and art and finding time. Like if you have a project that you could invest your energy into and keep coming back to it, you you can you can have dividends as opposed to like just drawing in your sketchbook here and there. You know, if you're working on an issue of your comic here and there, then after a few years, you might have you might have a lot of work. You might have something that you can do something with. So
yeah.
for me, like finding something like that to invest into was I think a game changer. And I gotta get deeper into the third issue, which I'm trying to gear up for, which is my Thundercats issue.
So excited to see it all. I think the clincher on the idea for what you're doing, and it's kind of the same for me, is it's an idea that you come up with and you're like, oh, that's good. I should do it, and then you do it because you're passionate about it. Like I think this is a good idea, and I want to show people. And if it's something you're not excited about to start, why even bother? So
And that's
I
how it
think.
came about. I was taking a class at like a summer class at SVA School of Visual Arts, just for just like to develop kickstart ideas. It was like an illustration class, and the last assignment was the professor. She said, "Do your dream project." Like if you had if you, if whatever's in your way or whatever, if that wasn't an obstacle, or if your dream came true and you had, what would the project you want to work on? What would that be? And and I thought that was a great like jump start, because then you're like, okay, let me think about that, and then you start thinking of all the things that you absolutely love and that you are absolutely passionate about. And once you find those things, then it's like, oh, okay, that is something that I'm so excited about that how could I not do it? It's like a tricky way of getting the students to find something that they really want to do, and then maybe they'll do it because they really want to do it.
Yeah, that's a perfect way of thinking about it. Like, what do you want to do? One question I've always thought about asking, people who create books, besides this book, you know, if you had unlimited free time and resources and access to anything like Marvel or DC or anything, what would be like a dream gig for you outside besides doing your own book? You know what I mean? Do you have any, are there any characters that you like? I have a story for Silver Surfer or something like that. Do you know, is there anything like that that would be like, oh my God, if I could do anything?
It's yeah, that's a very good question, Rob. It's funny. I feel like now that I'm doing my own thing, I think the answer would be that I think doing my own thing is the most exciting, because like
Yeah.
I fully own it, and it has the most potential for growth. But I mean, I see that that's like a cop out answer, but that's the real answer. And then if
It
there
is.
was
That's why I was like, besides that,
right, yeah. I mean, I don't think there's
is
like
there
a story that I wanted to tell, but I do love Green Lantern. He's like probably one of my my favorite comic book character. So like, that would be like, oh my god, I'm drawing Green Lantern. That I would have to like really
yeah.
like oh, I'd shit my pants or something if I got that job. But I don't think there's like a story that I would want to tell about Green Lantern that I have in my head that I've been wanting to get out. Um, yeah, no,
That makes sense.
yeah. I mean,
I
I have to think about it. I mean, you're doing that with your He-Man series. Um, yeah, it's funny. I never really thought about because that's always what they tell you, like in terms of when you're trying to get work or whatever. There was like, don't pitch us a story. We have a million stories. Like, don't do that. Don't pitch us these. I remember
yeah.
when I was trying to hit the convention circuit when I was just starting out. I did a mashup story even back then. It was like Batman and the Fantastic Four. That was the story. Um, and yeah, it was like the Joker was like blowing people up in Manhattan, and the Fantastic Four was investigating, and then like Batman shows up. That was like that was the story that I thought would
Yeah.
get the eyes of the editors, whatever 15 years ago. So not nothing that exciting.
Yeah. I wonder what I would do. I mean, I grew up loving the X-Men. I'm like, I feel like I have an X-Men idea in me, but it's all based on the characters that I used to know from the '90s, and they're probably so far removed from that anyway. I'm like, what would I wouldn't have anything to say about the modern characters, so I I don't know. It's none of these characters are the same from the ones that I used to know.
Right. I mean, like
I it actually
I'm sure if like this was the assignment that like I would come up with stuff like if you now I'm thinking about it, but no, there's nothing like inside me that I've always wanted to tell the story of Superman, discovering life on Mars. Like I've never there was nothing. I never had anything in me like
yeah
that. I just enjoy reading. Um, like I view it as kind of like a consumer when I think of Marvel and DC. I just well now I mean now I don't read so much, but I'm still, there's still a lot of good work being put out. Like people complain a lot about what's being put out, but there's a lot of diversity of stuff. I don't mean like
yeah
capital D diversity. I mean like just like I think the publishers realize that there's different fan bases. Like the guys who are in their 40s are not necessarily reading the same comic books as the people in their 20s. So like they'll make like nostalgia comics for those guys, or they'll make like prestige format comics for the people who are not. There's different stuff out there. I think the
yeah.
publishers get that.
I feel like the American comic book industry is a fraction of whatever it used to be. Everyone always talks about how like manga is just outselling American comic books by a massive degree, and it makes me stop and wonder, well, why? What is it about the manga stuff that is attracting all kinds of audiences, and why are people not reading Spider-Man and X-Men and Captain America and Batman the way they were when we were younger? Like, I feel like something's missing from somewhere. I don't know what the
I
answer
think
is.
it's about the people, the readers, not the comics. I just think that Japan and even Europe, I think, just have a lot stronger readership, like as a percentage of the population. In America, it's very fringe. Even though the comic book the ideas are like became huge, but people are still they're just watching the movies, they're just watching TV, they're not reading comic books, and which sucks. It's like it sucks to be like why is that the thing that I chose as like my passion in life is like one of the least popular media in America, but whatever, I can't control that. But yeah, I think it's that's known. I think in Japan, like it's still in the like the 7-Elevens, you know, like they have a comic rack. You know, they don't have that in America anymore. It used to be,
Yeah. That's,
but yeah, it's just much more robust over there. Um, I actually visited Japan a few years ago. I loved it. Not relating to comics or anything. It's just
sure.
it's a very interesting place, a very
God,
beautiful
I would
place.
love to
Yeah,
go one of these days, maybe.
no, it's that I was like blown away. I didn't really, you know, I wanted to go, but it was one of those trips where it surpassed my expectations. You know, very very nice place.
Yeah. And you know, another thing I keep seeing with comics is I've said this for a while, or I thought this for a while, and I mentioned on occasion is that like independent people, if you kind of play your cards right and do your social media right and put out the work right, like crowdfunding your own stuff can be extremely viable. Like I know one guy, one of my buddies, Isaac Bell, who I mentioned before, he just started his fifth Kickstarter. He's blown it away. His last one hit like $74,000. Like
That's amazing.
outrageous, crazy good. His current one that is a secondary title that someone else is drawing had like a $5,000 goal. And last I looked, he was at 25,000 in a couple of days. Or there's another one that's out there. It's like Lady Death versus Zombie Tramp, which,
Right.
you know, there's a
Well,
kind
that's
of
like an
like,
established, or like
but
they've
it's
had
like
prior success. Lady Death.
yeah, but they're like at over $117,000 in like one day, I think. Like, so what, I guess my point is like there are people, like I was saying before, that are willing to spend money on a thing. It's just I think a lot of it is getting in front of people's eyes
Yeah. Well,
is a trick.
there's so many different facets of you know creating something and being successful. You know, like you always you bash Rob Liefeld, which I mean I agree with you almost on everything you say about it, but it really shows you that to create a successful thing is not just about being a great artist or even a good artist. Like he's a very good salesman. Like he has a lot of enthusiasm. He's clearly got a lot of good habits in his life that he used to put his product out there, right? Like he was one of the founders of Image. Like he was bold. Like he put it out there. He did it, right? So I guess it's a little as an artist, like so maybe it's frustrating. Like why is this guy selling when quite frankly his art is not good? But that's just how it is with anything. Like that's only
Yeah.
one piece of the puzzle. Maybe it's like only 20%. Like if you can sell your stuff, if you can be dynamic and engaging and energetic, you can you can get your stuff out there. That if it's maybe in somebody who's doing shit that's 10 times better, if they can't sell it, then they can't sell it.
Yeah, absolutely. The salesmanship part of it, that's a big part of it. Selling it, getting in front of people's eyes, getting people excited about it. And I've seen stuff, we've all seen stuff that you're like, this is not good. Why is that killing? And here's this other thing over here that's genius. No one's looking at it.
Right.
It's I think sometimes it's just a little bit of luck. You know, it's like preparation combined with determination, and is where your opportunities come from. But there's luck factored into it. Sometimes you just have the fortunate, like, oh, this happened and I capitalized on it. You got to be able to recognize it and grab it.
Right.
You know.
No, yeah. I mean I feel like I keep learning as I go, you know. And when I say learning, I mean I don't just mean like drawing and production. Like I used to just draw. I used to just focus on the black and white that for a long time, and then I was like, let me try and just try and figure out how to if I can get coloring down, and I just feel like it's a long game. You know, there's a lot of different skills to 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 master if you want to be able to make your dream a reality. So.
Yeah. I
Uh,
mean, I full credit to you for not just doing the physical drawing, but learning color. You know, you got a whole like full production is you, right? Like it's all you.
yeah,
Like
yeah,
writing, penciling, inking, coloring, lettering, design, follow through on printing. Just um, I gotta ask, why nothing on the back cover? You got a whole canvas there.
That's funny. The first issue, yeah, I did. I put like a little blurb and just like a
Yeah.
little cutout. Um, why nothing on the back? I wanted to put something on the back, just deadline. I like I'm always just going down to the wire. And for that
Yeah.
second issue, I'm telling you, I was like I was not I didn't sleep like 2 days straight and I was just falling apart.
Oh,
I had to just get that I had to get it out because I wanted to have the books ready for like one of my cons that I do every year. So
yeah.
that's how
That's fair. I mean, it's not bad. It doesn't. Yeah. It's
I'm not gonna lie. Yeah, I just did it up time, just like flat color. Let's go.
I mean, everything else that you did in this thing, I loved it so much, and like I love your energy kind of transitions. And sorry, I'm trying to get like not the reflection on there, but these like wavy lines to show like this magic transition. You draw attractive girls without it being like gratuitously over the top sexy, but they're still very attractive. And then your monsters. I I cannot recommend this enough for anybody who's watching. Oh, I love this because it just reminds
Oh
me
yeah,
of those character sheets that you did and the names. I mean, we've got Sir Basher, Raymond, Marblehead,
I I yeah that
Faye.
I love that page. I spent a lot of time on it, and I basically
Yeah.
like all those character designs that you described. I just basically the payoff was one page in the book because I mean I just couldn't fit all those characters into the story in a
It
meaningful way.
it
But I'm like,
makes me want to draw them. Like they're so good. Your designs, they're so unique and they're so varying. Like, you know, there's little homages to things and like specs
yeah,
and
Specs is
high
like
tower. I
the
like,
he's like the black exploitation character. I'm like, yeah,
yeah.
this is like an '80s homage. Let's be real.
I'm not kidding when I say I look at these. I'm like, I would draw these characters. Like I would have so much fun. The designs are so great. Great splash page. Your Thundercats kind of homage kind of thing there. I love it. And then like even the environments, like it looks like a cold, snowy. I mean, obviously, but sometimes getting atmospherics correct, and then the use of coloring. It looks like a cold scene, and it works so well.
Yeah, I thank you. I built up that scene at the end there, and now like for the next issue, I'm like there's got to be like some kind of a fight between the He-Man character Kragnor and the Thundercat character Arctic Fox, but I don't want it's not going to be there's got to be a little bit of something because that it's a comic book, but that's not going to be the focus, right? But
Right.
yeah, that that's what it's all about. Just like
Yeah. If somebody wants to see 30 pages of He-Man fighting Lion-O, we did that in my book. My brother and I, we nonstop. Like almost half the book is just the end because it built up to that, and we're like, that's what we were doing because you're creating like a regular sized kind of comic, so you've got to condense the story down. We're just kind of indulging ourselves. We're like drawing it however we want with no concern for page count, so it becomes really thick, but hopefully fun.
yes.
So I love your book. I know you got some time before you're going to be able to get the next one out. But do you have even any kind of like theoretical a year from now kind of thing? Do you have a time frame in mind ish of maybe when you might have your next one? A
Well,
year from now, or who knows?
I would say that like definitely by June, the next issue to have the next issue. That's like my drop dead deadline. If I could possibly have it done, you know, by the spring, it's possible. Like I say, like I I have this. This isn't going away, but I also have to be real. I got a lot of responsibilities. I got a full
Yeah.
time job, and I got there's a new baby in my life, and
Yeah.
things going on, other things
It
not so
eats up
great.
time. Yeah.
Like it's just,
Yeah.
like I think um I think when I was younger, I beat myself up about it, but like I said, this for me, I just view it as a long game. It's a long term thing. I'm gonna do what I'm gonna build. Put those building blocks out as I'm able, and but I'm not gonna, like if I, like I say, it's a long game. If you if you burn yourself out, where's your project gonna go? Like
Yeah.
like when I was working on my second issue, I was like very like going hard at it for like 2, 3 months, and like during the time, I barely spoke to my wife at all. Like
Uh,
um, yeah, like there's a lot of things. There's a lot of different factors in a person, that make up their whole life, and this is one of them. But you got to respect the
yeah.
other. So
Do you have an
hopefully
idea?
by June.
Okay, that makes sense. Do you have an idea if you get to draw it all out and tell the story you want? Like how many issues in theory? Is it like a? Does it have like 10 issues and it's done, or?
That is something that I'll say no. Like I think like I have a lot of ideas for the story, so I don't have like even though I could like I feel like when I like if I was doing this maybe 10 years ago, I would just be wrapping it up. But I don't now I don't think about it like that. I have I've got a lot of places I could take the story, and it's so many ideas for things to do with the characters, and like the characters that I introduced in the first issue, and even those characters that I introduced in the second issue, like those one-off characters, like the Knights of Galanor. Like there's so much to do, and I love doing it. So no, I don't really have an end point. Really, I think it's just yeah.
Yeah.
I just keep going. As long as people enjoy it, they'll keep enjoying it, and if they don't, well then, who cares?
Yeah. The very concept of it like seems to allow itself for so much variety. You almost it'd be impossible to get bored. Like I've done this, I'm going to pivot over here and do these guys because there's so many different things you can do.
Yeah,
So
yeah. I
seems brilliant.
and like I even have like background characters in that first issue that I like you just see like they're like just like they're in one panel, but like that was a character that I've already like thought about, and like I could do stuff, in my own plans. I could do stuff with them if I wanted to. So and especially the villain that I created, just who didn't appear necessarily that much in the first issue. It's I have a lot of ideas for that. It's not something I want to resolve. Let's say in oh they knockout fight. Like it's kind of like a real challenge that I wanted to build up as such in the book.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. I'm looking forward to it. Um, it's such a great book, and I mean, I probably don't need to say it, but whenever you got it, please let me know. I will buy one from you, and I will throw it up on the channel and show it to as many people as possible because I believe in it 100%. I love it. I'm not just saying that to be a kiss ass. It's legitimately great, and if I can help push any eyes towards you, I'm happy to because it's
Yes,
really
thank
good.
you. And yeah, no, I mean, they're available to purchase. I got a whole stack of them, and
Yeah,
there's links on my website, comicbookman.com, and
yeah,
yeah, like one of the things with the I'm creating these characters that are homages to existing characters is how closely they should mirror them or not at all, and
yeah,
I mean, I'm basically leaning towards not mirroring them exactly, and that was kind of like the idea. At first, it was the idea like, oh, it'll be a twist, but now, like as I think about it, I'm creating the characters in a way that I find interesting, not necessarily to be exactly, you know, I don't think that really like that's the elevator pitch, but it's not. That doesn't necessarily make a great story. Like if
yeah,
you really had a comic with He-Man, Lion-O, and Optimus Prime, that it probably wouldn't really work out very well. They're all basically the same character, just in different bodies, right? It was like
right,
heroic do-gooder
right.
who's always makes the right choice, right? That okay, wow,
They
that
all
was
get along. They'd all be best friends,
exactly.
which is great. But
So when you want to
Yeah,
make it into like an exciting story, you kind of have to throw that out a little bit and decide, this guy's going to have a little bit more of an edge, or this guy's going to be
yeah,
have a secrets in his closet, that sort of thing.
yeah. And I think the more that you're kind of with the characters and you start telling a story, but then one idea leads to another, and you're just like, oh, stuff starts stringing together, and you start formulating this idea. I'm like, oh, I've got a character here. And I'm like, this is his past, and this is where he's going to go, and he's going to do this thing. That's what I found myself doing with all these characters in the He-Man fan comic. Whether they were characters that had one episode and so no history, or a character like Trapjaw, who I've basically like pivoted into a
Right.
hero. But I tried to show the why and the how and the where he's going to end up by the end of the current book that I'm working on. There's a couple of moments where I'm like, oh, I'm really excited for this. I hope this comes out because I've made a character here that I think is interesting, and I hope people buy it. But I didn't start out thinking it'd be that way. It's just Trapjaw. He's just this monster. But you live with him for a long time. You like these characters start becoming a yeah. So I'm interested to see where you take all your stuff.
Thanks, Rob, and you've invested so much into those characters. Like you're talking about the size of the books. Like you have a good page count, so you really like lived with those characters for a while, and the readers, we can see that. Like, oh shit,
Yeah,
Trapjaw,
I
he's
hope I've gotten positive feedback, so I appreciate it. I haven't had anybody come back yet and be like, "Dude, that's the stupidest thing I've ever read." I kind of want at least one person to do it. I'm like, I've come full circle. I've got a hater. You know, maybe one of these days. Well, I feel like I've taken up enough of your time. I feel like we kind of covered all the kind of interesting ground. I feel like we could probably sit here and talk at length for quite a while about all kinds of stuff. It's so easy to do when you run into somebody that has similar interests. So I appreciate it very much. Thanks for taking the time to, come on here and join me for this and take away from wife and kids and everything like that. I know that, you're probably like, honey, I got to go talk to this guy. But yes, these books, I'll have the links. I'll get the links for the books. They'll be in the description. Please, anybody, go pick up his work. You will not be disappointed. right? Dramatic, push it.
no, yeah,
Yeah.
thanks, Rob. No, you've been great. You reviewed both of the books on your channel, and I mean that's like that's the most anybody's done to really show off these books, and that really means a lot to me. So thank you very much, Rob.
Well, yeah, it's a joy. I've got a little bit of a voice that people are listening to. I've got a little bit of a subscriber count. I'm like, how'd this happen? And I would want somebody to like, would you show my stuff? Is that a possibility? And it's for all the talking about all these other comics, this independent stuff is the funnest. You know what I mean? It's something new. And if it
Well,
pushes eyes to anybody, I'm
and I
happy
mean,
to do it.
and the end, I mean, that's. I mean, we're not gonna talk about all that, but I mean, that's a whole other story. Why is that? Because the indie comics is just individuals who are like full of passion and creativity about a specific thing, and the publishers, it's a business. It's really there's like night and day what the books are and how they feel.
Yeah. So yeah, it's an exciting thing for me. So again, I appreciate you joining me, and thanks for giving me your time. And unless you got anything else, like I said, I'll get your links and I'll have them in the description so people can find you. And um, I love your work, man. I thank you for taking the time to come talk with me here. I
And
appreciate it very much.
and thank you for the platform, Rob.
Absolutely. So all
Yeah.
right, well that's it, and I'll catch you later. Thanks,
Okay.
man.
Bye bye.
All right.